Well, some of you know that I come from a family of 13 kids. We had 5 sisters and 8 brothers. And from 1954 to the year 2000, we lived north of Edwardsville on 13 acres, half of which were wooded. But every year, my dad opted to put in a big garden. In most years, it yielded enough to freeze or can a substantial variety of produce. Dad even tried his hand once at making some homemade ketchup. And he also was very good at putting in something unusual, or some of us might say alien, to a child's palate. Things like eggplant, okra, turnips, beets, Brussels sprouts, or kohlrabi. But nevertheless, in the late winter, it was only something just imagined, or a hope of a big, productive garden. It thus became the annual ritual when spring got warm enough to begin the preparation. We boys were awakened on a Sunday morning at what seemed like the crack of dawn and went to 6:15 a.m. Mass. Getting home, we put on our work clothes and got at it. Dad used a Gravely tractor to plow the field, and the rest of us went to work. Anyone who was old enough and reliable enough to handle a rake or a hoe, breaking up the clods and rigging things smooth and level for planting. And after about 2.5 hours is what it usually took, we all went in and Mom had a big brunch for us. Well, now in the first reading from the prophet Baruch, he describes the return of the exiled Jews to Jerusalem, even while they were still in captivity. His purpose was to restore hope, that God would remove the obstacles, using the imagery of making the mountains low, filling in the depths, and making the ground level. A little bit like our garden preparation, but of course, in the abstract. The people are admonished to remove the clothes of bereavement and put on the glory of God. Now, in that second reading from 2 Philippians, Paul emphasizes that Christ is our way of salvation. Our job is to find the road and walk it. Insofar as God is the one who started the good work in us, we need to maintain steadfastness so that we do not get lost along the way or make a wrong turn. Advent is derived from the Latin word meaning coming. We certainly look forward to celebrating Jesus' first coming at Christmas. I always enjoy Christmas. But even more, with recognizing that we are in the real so-called end times, we want to always be prepared for Christ's return. It is more likely that Christ will actually come returning for us at our death. But if we are prepared for the one, we should be prepared for the other. In Luke's gospel, the Lord's coming is set in a very historical context as far as the time and place. And the Baptist's coming from the desert harkens symbolically to the wandering of the Israelites in the desert for 40 years. His presence in the region of the Jordan echoes the Israelites' entry into the promised land across the Jordan. Thus, for us, Advent becomes a season of hope. In life, to accomplish any worthy outcome, we need sufficient future goal to keep us motivated. In the spiritual life, we are certainly incapable of reaching the joys of God's presence forever without hope and guidance to kind of keep us on track and focused on the prize. Despair is called the opposite of hope. But you know, there are other opposites that occur that can bleed away hope. Sloth or spiritual laziness may reduce us to making little or no effort in our spiritual life. And then presumption is an arrogant expectation that God somehow owes me this mercy despite the neglect of the ordinary means offered, such as Mass, prayer, and confession, which bestow grace. We Speaking of which, of course, next week, next Sunday the 15th, 6:30 p.m., right here, our annual parish Lenten service, penance service. Be here. But all this is why each year the church gives us a season of hope called Advent. And even if our spiritual spark inside us is like the lone ember in the fireplace, Advent could be like the wind blown in to ignite it into flame. Christmas lights are wonderful, but it's really us who are supposed to be the light of the world, right? So are we prepared? Are we preparing? And are we willing to make the effort to get there?